So, welcome. I so appreciate you being here tonight. The goal that I have for this series is to help people shift from that concept of just things happening and symptoms being the normal in our lives to a root cause investigation. So, even if this topic of food sensitivities, intolerances, and allergies isn't exactly where you need to be focused right now, it should be able to help you because again, it's a template. And as much as I personalize everything that I do because I look at DNA, I feel like the very beginning stages are about shifting our mindset and shifting our actions to be in action rather than just to be kind of complacent and waiting for things to falter and then be acting. So, root cause investigation is a group that I have on Facebook. It is a free group. It is also what I am now considering a weekly series. If I have attendance, I will continue to do it. So if you have any friends that you feel this could benefit, please share it with them, let them know. And every week it will be a different focus of whether it's a symptom or a condition or a concern. So this week is about food sensitivities, intolerances, allergies, and digestive issues. And very often I find that it's kind of a catch-all of digestive issues. I hear people who come to me and ask questions about digestive issues and what they should be doing. And what I find is I really need to dive in a little bit deeper um, and explain that root cause. So, root cause is so valuable because what we're looking at is covering up symptoms. We're realizing just does not solve the issue. We are masking the symptoms, maybe giving ourselves a little bit of leeway throughout the day to function a little bit more normally, and then it comes back to bite us. And the goal that I have for people is to recognize that that is very likely to it's very likely to result in more issues. The cover up is almost like a band-aid approach, and you don't know what's going on under that band-aid because you don't know what is lingering. What are you allowing to stay imbalanced that is affecting other areas of your body? Internally, we could be dealing with a lot of issues. And because this is relevant, I will bring it up now. But antihistamines would be a perfect example. And antihistamines are often used with food sensitivities and allergies, right? Because we're trying to manage the symptoms. But what I want to really focus on is how something like that, a cover up or a temporary fix, really does allow for the internal effects to increase because an antihistamine on the market, just, off the shelf, is going to simply block your receptors of the histamines. And it doesn't allow you to experience those external effects, but the histamine is still cooped up in your body and it's still accumulating. So ultimately, it can come back with a vengeance afterwards if you don't deal with it and if you don't address what you're experiencing. You really need to find out why your body is producing too much histamine, or is your body not handling and eliminating histamine quickly enough, and looking at what side of the coin that your body is failing, I'll say, or is not optimal. Then we're able to address it much more directly and solve the problem. Hence, root cause investigation. We want to see where is the body not adequately functioning and how can we support it. So another thing is we need to get to know our bodies so that we can understand what to anticipate and what are our symptoms telling us. We can't settle for symptoms as the new normal. We can't look at this as just expected or something that is normal for aging, because that's not the truth. It's something that is said in the media and in the market because then we buy a lot more medications and we do a lot more things to cover up the symptoms that make them money, but they don't put us in a position of power and of health. We don't want to allow for the disintegration of our health simply because we aren't informed of what our bodies need. So when we understand the root cause, we're no longer dependent on the standard system. We're no longer waiting for the answers. We're no longer waiting for we're like a diagnosis where they tell us, oh, you have this or you are this, and now you have to take this medication and that medication. In those instances, we are dependent on the system. If we are able to look at root cause, we're free of that. Now, I'm not saying we never go to a doctor. I'm certainly not saying that they aren't beneficial. What I am saying though is it can be so incredibly valuable to move beyond our concept of that and making sure that we are giving ourselves every opportunity to heal our bodies and support ourselves in a very personalized way. And that's what root cause investigation allows us to do. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Lisa Witherow. I own the DNA Advantage. I have had a wellness center in the past prior to and during COVID. I had a wellness center in Columbus, Ohio, and I sold it because I wanted to focus solely on genetic research and working with clients to help them get to the root cause. And my wellness center was doing a lot of other things. I was working with people doing neurotherapy, working on brain health and relaxation therapies, and so on. So I really wanted to work primarily in the DNA and the really helping people get to know their bodies. And that is where I am now. So the first step is to have that mind shift, though, of going to root cause and not looking at symptoms as something that is part of us or that happens to us that we just have to handle. But what is symptoms are a signal. They are telling us what our body needs and that something is imbalanced or deficient or toxic. And those three messages need to be listened to, or we will not have the health that we want to have. There is a disintegration of health over time when we aren't paying attention to the signals. If it's almost like taking the batteries out of a smoke detector. If we have a fire in the house and we're just going to take the batteries out, there's going to be repercussions. And we need to make sure that we look for the fire. We look to see, is it just a false alarm? Or is it something that and even if it is a false alarm, I like to go even a step beyond that and say, why? Because if it's a faulty wire, okay, let's fix it. Let's not just have ourselves in a sense of false security that every time the smoke alarm goes off, it's just a false alarm. We need to know what is going on and what is our body telling us. It's really critical. So when it comes to digestive issues or food sensitivities, food intolerances, and allergies are a little separate, but we'll talk about that. But digestive upset, stomach discomfort, elimination issues, skin rashes, systemic inflammation, joint pain, and mood issues. Now, what's interesting is when we say it that way, it doesn't really distinguish between any of them. Like for those of you who are on right now that have these problems or have loved ones that have, these problems, we really don't gain a sense of what the real cause is when we look at it like that, because they kind of overlap, don't they? And what we want to make sure we're doing is taking ourselves a step further to better understand what is the root cause and what can we do to address it. And by getting to know what is truly contributing and what the cause is, then we can get into what is our body telling us and how can we fix it. There are several functions when it comes to digestive issues that are necessary for digestion. So to properly process our nutrients, we need stomach acid, we need enzyme production, microbiome balance, integrity of our intestinal lining, and also our like an optimal speed of digestion is necessary for there not to be any kind of issues. So there are a lot of working parts, and we'll get to it a little bit later. This shouldn't be a really long extended session, but what we'll do is talk about like where do these things falter and how can we identify which of these is a problem. Some of the potential influences are stress level, medications, chemical exposures and viruses and bacteria, deficiencies, toxicities, and inflammation. So when we think about it, some of it is external and some of it is internal. So we need to be able to appreciate that first section is what is our body able to do, right? We're looking at stomach acid production and enzyme production and how is our body balancing the microbiome. Now, there are some external factors that can affect that, most certainly. And again, we'll be talking about that individually. But it's so interesting because when we start to really dissect it and look at it closely, when it's an issue, that's what we need to do. Instead of just saying, I'm just going to take an antacid, we need to understand why we're having acid reflux. Why are we having heartburn? And to be honest with you, there are studies that say antacids are only making the problem worse. So I can explain that too if anybody's interested when we get to that point. But distinguishing between the different issues can be difficult because, again, they all kind of overlap. Digestive issues and food sensitivities and food intolerances especially all kind of intertwine. And if we aren't really paying attention to the details or that we don't even know the difference, it's much harder to figure out. Now, food allergies, that unless they're like later onset in life, they are pretty, they're a little bit easier to distinguish, but there have been a lot of instances where food allergies occur later in life, and it can be because of something that's imposed by the environment that causes a shift in our system. So that is something that is important to distinguish because when it is something later in life, we can often do something about it more so than when it is in childhood. And even then, I have clients who have, when we identified what the cause was, this is years ago, and let's see, she's not on right now, but her son had a peanut allergy at, I believe it was 18 months was the first time. And he had had peanuts before and did not have a reaction. In fact, I believe he had had peanuts at least 2 or 3 times before his allergenic reaction. And it was, I mean, hospital, almost died kind of reaction. So when we talked about it later, after the trauma was over, we talked about what could have made the difference. And what we realized was he had been given an antibiotic. And within about 6 days of that antibiotic, he had eaten peanuts and had that reaction. The antibiotic had very likely eliminated his gut microbiome, the protection, the layer of protection that he had previously. And now he had a full-blown peanut allergy, could not come into contact with them at all without an anaphylactic reaction. So he did end up getting food uh, sensitivity training, exposure training, which I did not do. He went to, I believe it was Cleveland Clinic, and had the exposure therapy, and it worked. But it's I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for everyone. Every case is different, but it's so important to realize how amazing our bodies are at healing and recovering, and then in this case identifying what the immune system should and should not be responding to. And that's ultimately what happened. So it's important to distinguish these from one another. And I'll go into a really quick review of each one so that you can get a better sense of what they are. So food sensitivities, poor metabolism and digestion of nutrients, which can allow undigested proteins to irritate the digestive tract. This can be temporary because it is dependent, as we talked about before, on some of the internal qualities of our body. Microbiome imbalance and intestinal permeability can allow for food sensitivities to develop and to intensify. So we might have a momentary food sensitivity because we've just had a bacterial infection, or we have had a exposure to antibiotics. And when we start to look again we trace back to see, when did this start? What had happened preceding that? Did we just have a exposure to a virus? Or is there something going on that's stressing us out? What is going on and what is contributing? And then how can we adjust it? So it's really powerful. Food intolerances seem very similar to food sensitivities, but an intolerance is a difficulty in digesting and metabolizing certain foods, often due to inefficient genes. So we either don't produce a particular enzyme efficiently, or a protein that is contributing to an enzyme that are required to break down the nutrients. So you can think of things like lactose, gluten, histamine, FODMAP, caffeine, sucrose, and maltose, which is kind of a whole nother ball of wax, because think of how many things sugar is in. Same thing as gluten, really, but it for some people they might feel that sugar's more important than gluten. I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up. For me, gluten, I've been off of gluten for 16 years, so it's not a big deal, but it can be for a lot of people. And salicylate intolerance too, which is in a lot of fruits and vegetables. So the difference is, again, we're looking at our sensitivities and intolerances, and it's almost like a sense of degree, because do we have this temporary sensitivity that we can bolster our system and give ourselves support? Is it a food intolerance that we need to be taking certain enzymes, avoiding certain foods, or giving ourselves certain support to even food combinations that might be helpful? So it really is a different approach for our unique situations. Again, food allergies, the distinction is immune system reaction. Our immune system is mistaking a food for a danger. And so we want to make sure that our body is not releasing the IgE antibodies that are then causing that anaphylactic response, which causes severe inflammation and can potentially cause death. We want to make sure that we are giving our bodies every opportunity to reduce inflammation, to recognize what is a threat to our body, and to support our immune system so that we don't encounter this. Now, again, food allergies are typically identified when we're young. If we do develop a food allergy or what feels like a food allergy, it is very important to recognize if the throat starts to close, or we start to have any kind of difficulty breathing through the nose. We need to make sure that we are addressing that most immediately, and then let's figure it out, because we really do want to make sure that histamine, even in allergies, can cause that itchiness and can cause a little bit of swelling, but the throat closing can be a much bigger issue when it comes to like an anaphylactic response. So, in most cases, we can survive the symptoms and discomfort of food sensitivities and intolerances and general digestive issues. So, even if we continue eating the foods that we have sensitivity to or response to, we can get away with it most of the time, but the damage caused can be pretty dramatic in the long term, because it causes that systemic inflammation and digestive discomfort, but also deterioration that we don't want to allow. It can cause or lead to poor quality of life and ultimately disease. We don't want that to be something that we experience, and certainly limit our quality of life. So it's worth the effort to find the root cause, when it means that we can become healthier, we can have more joy, do the things, travel, and be with our friends, be with our family, and eat normally and feel confident that we're doing the best possible things for our bodies. So it's definitely worth the investigation. So the first step to doing that is get to know your symptoms instead of trying to cover them up. And I'm not saying that we never give ourselves relief of symptoms. Please know that I don't want you to be miserable. That is not my goal. But I really want you to appreciate that listening to your body is so important. It's so valuable. When we have these challenges, we want to be able to like listen and be able to distinguish. So based on these, I would want you to look at which of the categories that we just discussed seems more likely. There's the food sensitivity, obviously, the intolerance, which is more DNA. It's probably going to be more like a food aversion. There's a particular, like when I went gluten-free, I I felt so much better. I lost weight. Had more energy. I was sleeping better. Just so much changed for me. So that's more of an intolerance. A sensitivity is more of, when you eat a particular food, you might feel like stomach pain. You might feel like it's irritating, but it might not go to the full extent of making you feel exhausted or making you feel like your sleep is compromised. And then food allergies, of course, is a lot more severe. And general digestive issues can be more related to stress. They come and go. General digestive issues are more like, you might find that your symptoms occur more often on a Monday or Tuesday because your stress level at work is higher and you feel that impending the deadlines and all of those things happening. Or you may find that, let's say it's even just once a month, you're feeling like, oh, the bills are due now, I'm reacting to my food. So that's more of the general digestive issues that are stress related rather than food directly related. So those things are super important to figure out, because then you can do something about it. So step 2 would be, you want to investigate those clues. I like to dive into how long you've dealt with the symptoms, what the frequency of symptoms has been. Is it something that you experience once a week again? Is it something that you're experiencing just every 6 months? And do you have relatives who have experienced similar issues? Is this something that you see a pattern with for yourself, your siblings, or even parents or grandparents? And have you linked these issues to any particular foods, time of day, or other stimuli like stress? When we talk about how things affect us, it can be momentary or it can be long term. So we want to be able to distinguish what is happening within our bodies and maybe even give ourselves a break. And we'll talk a little bit in a moment about that implementation, but it really is an incredible opportunity to look at when something happened. If we started to have stomach issues and it's when I'm eating a particular food, but it only started when I was like after I had had a bacterial infection, then I would look at things like probiotics and I would look at what's going on with my, like any kind of medications or anything like that that might be prolonging the imbalance within my microbiome or my gut microbiome or the intestinal barrier, because we want to make sure that we aren't just assuming we have to avoid this food forever, especially if it's valuable. There are even sensitivities and intolerances to different types of vegetables and fruits. And sulfur is another one that we could be sensitive to. If sulfur is something that we're sensitive to, we need sulfur for our health. We really truly need to have the benefits of sulfur for our methylation process. So to eliminate sulfur related foods like cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, all of those, we can do that short term, but long term, it's not a benefit. So we need to figure out why. And that can also be from a deficiency. So we need to be aware of how our body is functioning. And if there is a deficiency, we can support the body in a very specific way so that we can add those foods back in and not have any kind of reaction. So if the symptoms began suddenly, was there a change or a challenge that may have set your body off balance? And then being able to rectify that and give yourself every benefit of balance again. So step 3 is what I would call that next level up. And it is somewhat optional, I will say, although I think everyone should do it at some point because you know your body so well. And there will be some examples here. And at the end, you can always ask questions and we can talk about it. But the most thorough investigation involves an easy saliva test. It allows you to look at your genes and really understand what your body is capable of. So it really is your core competencies. We can learn a lot from our symptoms about what's going wrong, but we don't know why. We don't understand the root cause and the underlying flow of things when it comes to our body's capabilities. So if you get stuck or frustrated, your DNA can reveal the facts. When it comes to how your body's responding to food, it can tell you, your DNA can tell you what your enzyme production is likely to be because of specific genes that are contributing to enzymatic production. Also, receptors and how your enzymes are being received and processed. Nutrient absorption, how well does your body convert nutrients and absorb nutrients? There are different genes for each of those steps, but it's amazing when I get clues for a client to understand when they're having issues or with what food, then we're able to look at which genes are on that side of either conversion or absorption. The microbiome balance, again, is huge because it is so critical for breaking down certain foods and even producing things like serotonin, producing our B12. It's a contributor to our health in a big way. And if our microbiome is imbalanced, it can present a lot of issues. Specific food intolerances can occur due to poor breakdown. So if we're not breaking down our foods, we are like, it's almost like a process. So it could be that the intestinal barrier is compromised, and then therefore it's not producing as much of the stomach acid because it's like almost powered back because it knows that there is permeability. Now, permeability is the gut lining is only one cell thick. And so you can imagine that if there is any kind of disruption because of bacteria or virus, it can start to part, like those cells aren't as close together as they should be. And what can happen is then larger particles of proteins can get through there into the blood supply and cause a reaction. That is a food sensitivity. Now, it can graduate to a food intolerance if we don't address that gut permeability issue. So it's kind of a sliding scale with certain foods. But it really is important to recognize what we can do then to support it, because we can heal the digestive tract relatively easily. And I've worked with people and been able to address that within 30 days. With immune response to foods, too, we have to appreciate that it really is, there are so many genes that tell us what is going on. Like the immune system gene, there are genes related to how the immune system powers up and how it powers down. And HLA genes are really important for both food intolerances and immune response. And then when we look at how our microbiome is balanced, there are specific genes that are related to the microbiome. And the FUT2 or FUT2, as we call it, is a gene that shows a very specific bacteria that will always need to be replenished if you have a FUT2 variant, because your body just is not capable of maintaining that bacteria. It's bifidobacterium. And so whenever you order a probiotic, you want to make sure that you have bifidobacterium in that probiotic so that it can make sure that your body is able to stay balanced. Now, that's just one example, but it really is amazing what you can learn from your genetics. So then the fourth step, whether you've done DNA testing or not, you want to make a strategic plan. So once you have a good understanding of your symptoms, you're listening to your body, you're understanding when it all started, and then you're getting a sense of root cause. Clearly, in some cases when it's severe, we need to look at DNA because it's just guessing if we don't. But in some cases, when we can see that, yes, I understand that I started having this problem when I had this virus or when I took this particular medication, and we start to understand, oh, that medication is known for degrading this particular nutrient, let's supplement with this nutrient. So that would be in my strategic plan. If I know somebody's on a statin, as an example, I'm always going to say, you need to take CoQ10. So CoQ10 is diminished very rapidly by a statin. And I also would be doing, of course, it depends on if you're on blood thinners, but I would also, in a lot of cases, be doing a fish oil or something like that, like a omega-3. So you've got that that's in your strategic plan now. Now whether you add those in right away or whether you have some steps before it is going to depend on the individual situation. So you always want to keep your primary health goals in mind. You always want to be sure to establish the support that is in steps and stages and implement them gradually and be patient. So when you're making a strategy, like in business, we're going to step through it and say, okay, on this day, we're going to do this. And on this day, we're going to go to stage 2. When it comes to your health and a strategic plan, we need to be patient. You don't necessarily want to say, within 3 days, I'm going to start this, because you're still reflecting on what that first step is doing and how your body is responding. So you want to make sure that you're going slowly and you're listening to your body and understanding the implications. Then you can move on to that next step and appreciate like what's going on with that one. But definitely listen, because there's the one thing that I've seen so many times. I don't know if any of you've heard of Dr. Amen, but when I had the I had Peak Brain Performance was my wellness center, and Dr. Amen is very well known for brain health. And I had several clients come to me after a handful of clients come to me and say that they had gone to Dr. Amen's clinic. We're talking major bucks. And they would come in and say, here, and show me this incredibly large number of supplements. And they'd say, can you look at these and tell me what's wrong? And I'm looking at this big bag of supplements. I'm talking like 12, 18 supplements. And I said, well, okay, what's happening? And they said, I don't know. I feel terrible. And I had to stop taking them all. And I said, okay, well, when you added, which one caused it? And they added them all at once. So they weren't given any direction as far as how to add them into their regimen and give their body some time to adjust and even see the benefits or side effects of the first one before they started the second one. So that's why you don't want to have to start something and then stop everything and start over again. Or in their case, like they pretty much threw them away, which was very sad. So with this fifth step, implementing and reviewing your strategy, it's super, super important. Is once you've created your strategy and you're implementing it, you make one change at a time, which I've already referenced, because in your plan, you want to make sure you're not doubling up a bunch of things. Then when you implement, you want to make sure you're pacing yourself and adding one thing at a time. You want to listen to your body and document it. Track the timing of implementation as well as any effects, positive or negative. If you feel like it could be because this is food intolerances and food sensitivities, you want to make sure that you aren't, it could be part of your implementation might be to eliminate a particular food group. And so you eliminate that food group for, let's say, 14 days. And then if you add one thing back in at a time, you have to pay attention. Let's say that it's dairy. And let's say that you add in, you want to try like a particular cheese because hard cheeses aren't expected to be as triggering. And so you add in a hard cheese. Well, you don't want to just eat lasagna because that's going to have a whole bunch of different cheeses in it at a restaurant if you don't have control over it. So that's what I mean is you really want to track and make sure that you're paying attention to the effects and really honoring the process that you're going through because you don't want to set yourself back. And then you don't progress to the next strategy until you see the impact of the changes that you've made. And it could be if you have negative effects, you don't want to necessarily stop it entirely. Maybe if you take a supplement and let's say it causes a rash or it causes irritation, it could be a detox effect. So what you want to do is maybe just take a pinch of that supplement and really gradually increase it over time. And once you get 2 weeks, 2 weeks or 3 weeks out, then maybe you can add another. But keeping in mind what some of the variables are that, again, stress is difficult to track. It's very much involved when it comes to how our bodies respond to foods and to our lives. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention if we're feeling particularly stressed and that particular day that we're taking a supplement was a bad day, maybe that's a stress response rather than a reaction to that supplement or that food. So we have to be really cognizant of all of the different factors. So when we shift to the root cause approach, it really does require a different mindset. And if you need support or reinforcement to stay on track, there are some resources. I've just changed my group to really focus on root cause investigation. And it is a community on Facebook. If I think most of you are members, but you're welcome to join if you're not. It is a free group that we talk about root cause investigation. There's a place you can ask questions. The community is, I'm usually the one who answers them, or you can contact me directly too. But if it's a question that you think the community could benefit from, you're welcome to ask it there. And you can even ask it anonymously if you'd like. But it is something that then I'm able to answer and it could benefit even more people. And but if it is something that you'd want to ask privately, you're welcome to contact me directly, reach out to me through iMessenger is perfect because I do check that all the time. And then the other option is you can always join my Healthy Advantage membership, which is a newer program that I've just launched. And I'll just tell you really briefly about that. And then we're going to go to questions and discussion. But the Health Advantage membership is something that I created because I've recognized a lot of people are struggling with getting to root cause and really feeling the benefits of making those changes. And then they get confused and then they step back and they're like, okay, I'm not figuring this out on my own. And then they go and get on medication, which I just really don't want for long term. I want you to find out what's going on in your body. And if medication is a temporary fix, that's fine. But I just want you to recognize that sometimes that can be contributing to the issues. So the benefits of the Healthy Advantage membership, I help you narrow in on the goals that will change your life. The health goal analyzer is that first step. And then I do a one-on-one health assessment with each member, and we talk about what your goals are and how quickly you need to get there and what are some of the first steps that we can do so that there's some accountability and we can work through. And then there is a weekly group guidance and accountability call where we just do a really quick topic of like 15 minutes where I talk about a health topic. Sometimes it is something that people have asked for. And sometimes if people haven't asked for anything, then I improvise and give some support in areas that I've had individuals need some support. And then we move from that 15-minute segment into just looking at any questions, accountability, goal setting, making sure that every week you have a specific health goal that you are moving towards, even if it's a tiny baby step that you're adding in a particular supplement or that you are eliminating a food, in this case, when it comes to food sensitivities, or you're looking at ways to support your stress level or overcoming certain obstacles that you've had in your way of health. And then we have monthly live health topic sessions that are for the group, and we all talk about that topic. And usually it is moving people forward with, like a lot of times it is how to overcome a particular obstacle that I've seen a lot of in the group discussions or in the one-on-one assessments. And then I do healthy alignment content. So we're talking about what your experience is, your desires for health, really refining what your desires are and how to set your goals, and then the hurdles, how to identify what your health hurdles are and to be able to get those out of the way, and how to stay motivated. And then there are many tools and resources that I make available in the membership group. And bonuses, we have workshop discounts. If someone needs a consultation with this, the benefits, a lot of people will just do the weekly group and the one-on-one assessment, and then they're good. But if you need a healthy consult or health consultation directly with me, they are discounted through this membership. And then the supplement discount is 20% for everyone, which is really nice because if you need supplements, what I typically do is find the supplements for individuals and then show you the best price and the best quality. And then you're able to get 20% discount on everything that you order through my dispensary. And then even with Amazon, if I find that the price, a lot of times I will compare prices and see if there's anything cheaper. I haven't recently found, other than one item that is cheaper on Amazon. than the regular price. But I always compare the discounted price, and I haven't found anything that's cheaper than that. And then quarterly health intensive discount as well, because I do a quarterly, like 3 to 4 hour program that helps people really focus in on specific health topics. So that Healthy Advantage membership it's a monthly, there's no contract or anything, and it is $67 a month, and you get all of these benefits. And if anybody's interested, you're welcome to reach out to me. It is a newer membership because again, I have noticed what people are asking for, and so I've just created this. And if you have any feedback or ideas for things that you would want to be either a part of this membership or that you feel is not clear, I'm happy to answer those questions as well. You can always reach out to me or ask today. But yeah, when it comes to food sensitivities, whether it's you or a loved one, if you have any particular examples or anything that you want to ask me questions about, I'm happy to answer questions and help you in any way I can. So I will welcome any discussion or questions about that. Anyone? Thank you, Casey. Yes, Casey is a current client of mine, and she is kind enough to give me support. No questions? Oh, thank you, Steph. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you have any questions at all, though, if anything comes up later, I am more than happy to answer your questions. You can, again, join the group if you're not already part of the group. It is Root Cause Investigation is the name of the group. And we talk about, I just really try to encourage people and give some ideas. And then my goal is to have these discussions once a week, and it will be on a different topic. So if you do have a particular topic that you're interested in, I'm happy to address those topics. I have a reasonable list right now that people have submitted. And so you'll just be added to the list, and I'm happy to do that because I'm always looking for ideas on what I can share and help people with. Well, if there are no questions, I am happy to let you all go, and I will hopefully see you next week. Thank you so much and have a great evening.